Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back for another 50 years in polygamy chapter read. If you can do me a favor, go ahead and like the video. It does help the channel and it lets me know you're not just, a view, but you're actually viewing. We are on chapter 4. This is called The Drill, and it's for years 1952 to 1957. My 37-year-old mother didn't have any idea I would be her last child. It wasn't her choice to quit after having 8. Because of her Mormon upbringing, she believed she should have as many children as the Lord would give her. Well, that means the Lord gave you 8. If that's when you stopped at 37, that's how many he gave you. Not only is this a strong fundamentalist conviction, but if women obey this edict, God will provide for their large families as they grow. Even more promising, fundamentalists believe the more children a woman has, the more glorified she will be in heaven, which may explain why we see people like Mary struggle with only having one. These things are ingrained in them for such a long time, which I know this has nothing to do with the Browns, but think about that. She was given the opportunity to possibly have more kids, which would help her with where she is in heaven. And Cody stopped her from doing that by dangling the carrot in front of her, letting her think that she can have additional children through surrogacy or through in vitro, just to decide, no, I just want to do it the natural way. Wow, I never thought about that. Sorry for those of you who don't watch Sister Wives, but it just made me think of that. Mom said she never did feel she fully completed her duty to God and her husband's posterity. She tried for many years to have more children. She conceived twice but miscarried both babies. She thought it was her unrighteousness that influenced her procreative inabilities. Oh my goodness. So your religion guilts you into feeling like because you have miscarriages, it's your fault. So imagine how hurtful that is to not just go through the miscarriage, but to blame yourself for multiple reasons, not just your body, but because of your inabilities. Oh, it sucks. Between labor pains the day I was born, my mother and her mother tried to visit with my father's sisters, Beth and her husband, Lyman. Their home, just across the street from Mom's, was always like Grand Central Station, a constant gathering place for every polygamist in our neighborhood. Mom squeezed her mother's hand as the contractions grew closer together and more intense. I hate to end our visit, my timid mother told Aunt Beth, but I better get myself up to Eleanor's before I don't make it at all. Between each labor pain, Mother supported herself on Grandma's arm as they hastened along toward Aunt Eleanor's. You weren't going to wait 1 minute longer, Mom told me years later. I thought you might be born right there on the street in front of the whole world, but I pled with God to make you wait until we got to Eleanor's house. I still hate waiting, I reminded Mom as we tenderly looked into each other's eyes. Well, God answered my prayers, Mom sighed. Right then, your Uncle Marvin showed up. He helped me into his car and rushed me up the street. Eleanor had no sooner helped me get settled onto her bed when you flew out. Now, personally, given all the stuff that you told me about Eleanor, I wouldn't want to have my baby on her bed. But, they're different. They're more forgiving. So we're just going to go with the flow here. If she hadn't been there to catch you, I don't know. Wow, I chuckled. No wonder I have so many dreams of flying. Mom and I laughed together. Your Uncle Rulon got there just in time to check on you and make sure all of your parts were put together properly, Mom said proudly. Everyone was in awe of my baby girl since I had 4 sons in a row. On July 26, 1953, when I was 7 months old, all of Dad's family except Mom and I had joined the rest of the group in American Fork Canyon for Sunday school and sacrament meeting. There, in God's gracious array of nature and sunshine, The Alderites felt they could openly worship him to their heart's content, free from the eyes of supposed do-gooders who might report their suspicious activities. As Mom entered the kitchen, holding me across her arm, she heard a shocking news flash from her RCA Victor radio. The reporter announced another raid, an ongoing, in-depth plan to rescue underage brides and polygamous children, this time in Short Creek, Arizona. Mom said the raid, that was really an attempted rescue, was called Operation Seagull. At approximately 3 that morning, Utah and Arizona state troopers crept into the desert city, hoping to find everyone asleep and docile. As a long procession of law enforcement reached the crossroads, they saw fireworks flash across the sky. This was the community's way of warning citizens of encroaching enemies, because they probably had people sitting there watching, making sure that they could see what was going on, kind of like what they did in Warren Jeff's setting. Rather than finding an unassertive clan of polygamists, troopers found the city of fundamentalists huddled in a huge circle, singing hymns and praising their Lord. 31 men were taken into custody over a period of 10 days. 263 women and children were taken in buses to shelters in Arizona, where they were allowed to stay together. For a week, my father called the Arizona authorities every day, trying to find his daughter, Lucinda. He wanted them to give him custody of her and his forthcoming grandchild. Finally, Dad got the call. Obviously not realizing my parents were also breaking the polygamy law, social services told my parents they could come get their daughter if they promised to keep her away from those horrible polygamists and never let her return to Short Creek. Goes to show you how they don't investigate certain things, because if this young child was in this situation, wouldn't you wonder how she was allowed to get there? But I guess during those times they didn't do, well, they still don't do a thorough enough investigation. Before long, Utah and Arizona authorities conceded to public pressure and to the high cost of housing, feeding and clothing so many polygamous families. Within a few years, most of those families were back home and reunited. My sister's baby was born 11 days after my first baby. Lucille and her daughter stayed in Murray with our family until the spring of 1955. While at home, she completed 8th grade and helped watch James and me while Mom did shift work at Murray Laundry and cooked at the Salt Lake County Infirmary, the hospital. Early one morning, just after I turned 4, I woke up when I realized Mom's hand was pressed softly over my mouth. Shh, she whispered, kneeling close to my face. Be real quiet. Feeling no fear, only curiosity, I did exactly as Mom told me. She wrapped a blanket around me and carried me to the car where 4 of my brothers were waiting. She placed me gently into the arms of a brother sitting in the back seat, then climbed in the front of the car and quietly shut the door. Dad drove slowly down our gravel driveway of the next few roads north on State Street and out of the Salt Lake Valley. An informant had warned polygamous families of another possible midnight raid. This time, it was to be across Salt Lake and Utah counties. Dad drove through the night when the lull of our 1947 Hudson came to a halt. My brothers and I woke up and rubbed our sleepy eyes. We're finally here, Mom sighed. For most of my early years before we fled, and after Mom and Marian's kids returned to Murray, our basement home was full of the fundamental insane. 6 of my brothers haggled over the space in the small north bedroom. The middle bedroom was packed to the hilt with me, my sister Francine, before she too ran away to get married at the age of 14. Goodness gracious, these girls just want to get married. At 14, the last thing that I was thinking about was marriage. At 14, I was... Oh. Sorry. I wasn't thinking about marriage. I was thinking about my boyfriend at the time, which then later became my boyfriend later on in life too. So that's why y'all saw that. Yeah, okay. I'm reminiscing a little bit too much. Marianne's 2 daughters and one of Dad's wives, depending on which one, wasn't sleeping with him every 3rd night in the south bedroom. I feel like I'm... Okay, yeah. Even though living inside was quite dismal, our home was nestled in the midst of acres and acres of clover fields, grasslands, cow pastures, and swampy wetlands, a child's paradise. Along the east side of our dead-end up unpaved road, 8 or 9 more homes overflowed with fundamentalist friends and loved ones. Our childhood wonderlands were called Pligville. So they use that term plig as something good, whereas later on you didn't want to be called a plig. It was negative. It was derogatory. Just before kindergarten, Dad drove me to the All Red Group's alternative doctor, a non-believer. Apparently, Uncle Rulon was in hiding again somewhere, delivering another baby with his huge family or counseling one of his hundreds of followers. It was just a checkup. Dad said when we arrived at the doctor's office, the doctor's going to see if you're healthy enough to go to kindergarten. In the large waiting room, couches lined the bare, white walls. A few of my dad's friends smiled at me warmly. When the doctor called me, Dad gently nudged me in his direction. Go ahead, honey. I'll be right here waiting for you. The doctor took my hand and led me into the cluttered examination room with the overwhelming smell of cleaning solution. As soon as we were in the room, he let go of my hand, locked the door behind us, and told me to take off my clothes and climb on the table. Wait a second. They had the child go in the room by herself? In a petrified stance, I stared back at him. My dad didn't tell me I have to take off my clothes. I said, take your clothes off and climb on the table like I told you to, the doctor ordered. I'm not going to hurt you. I have to see if everything is normal down there. What? I couldn't move. Tears began to stream down my cheeks. The doctor stared at me angrily, then grabbed me and plopped me down on the cold table. He hurriedly and roughly removed my dress and panties and told me to lie on my back. When I still couldn't move, he pushed me back onto the table. Just relax now, he snapped while he spread my legs apart. Oh my goodness. But I squeezed them tightly together and began to whimper. When he forced them again apart, my chubby white legs began to tremble. The doctor traced my labia up and down. Oh, y'all, I wasn't prepared for this. Over and over again. Through foggy eyes, I saw him lick his fingers and leave them wet with spit. While I tried to squirm my way into a sitting position, I sobbed and begged him to leave me alone. Stop it now. Hold still, he commanded again. He pushed me back against the table, holding me down. He put his face right next to mine. Do not make one more sound, little girl, he said slowly, emphasizing every word. If you do, you will bother everyone out there, and that will make them really mad at you. Totally petrified, I tried to hold still and not make a sound, but I couldn't help it. When I continued to whimper, I feared he might hit me. It seemed forever. I stared at the ceiling, squares, and quivered in terror while his fingers pressed and manipulated just inside my vagina. Suddenly, I felt something large and cold start to push further inside of me. Oh, God. It hurt so much I couldn't help but scream. I sat up and tried to push him away. The doctor abruptly backed up and looked at the door behind him. Then he demanded, "Get dressed now, naughty little girl." At last, he unlocked the back door and disappeared. All alone, I could hardly catch my breath or move. I slowly sat up on the end of the vinyl-covered table. Hot tears poured onto my chest and bare legs. I slid down to the footstool a little at a time and then carefully stepped down to the linoleum floor. I found my underwear on a wooden chair and pressed them between my legs, hoping the burning pain would stop. Then I slipped them up over my legs and my dress over my head as fast as I could before the doctor could come back in. As I shuffled into the waiting room, I looked at Dad through hazy eyes. He was oblivious and still talking to his friends. I wonder if I'd explode inside out all over again. Why did my dad leave me alone with the mean doctor? Why did the doctor do that to me? What if the doctor comes out here and tells Dad I was a naughty girl and misbehaved? Dad might make me go back in there and behave myself. Oh my goodness. Next to my father, I leaned way back and pushed myself as hard as I could against the couch. I forced away my tears so he wouldn't ask me what was wrong. I wish I could become invisible. He won't believe me, my thoughts repeated, so I forced myself into perfect compliance. It is so sad that this happened to her, and to make it worse, by somebody who was supposed to be a doctor. On the way home for a second or two, I thought I ought to ask or tell Dad something. He smiled and spoke to me as if nothing in the world was wrong. A million things were going through my young mind. I'm supposed to respect my elders and do as they say. Guess the doctor had to see if I'm okay, just like Dad said. What if Mom gets angry because I let the doctor touch me down there? The doctor called it down there too. I must be a bad girl for not holding still. Maybe if I had, it wouldn't have hurt and made me feel sick all over. I won't ever tell anyone. I'm sure they'll be really mad at me. In our dreary, dark basement, just before I started kindergarten, I heard my mother's excited voice. I paced back and forth down our hallways so I could stay close enough to hear her. When she hung up the phone, she knelt on the linoleum floor in front of me and gave me a huge squeeze. I get to go to school to become a nurse, she said. I'll be able to help other people get well and make some money to help your papa support our family. She smiled. I still have to work in the kitchen at St. Mark's Hospital some of the time, so I won't get to see you very much. But Aunt Marianne will look after you and your brothers while I'm away. Seeing my mother happy made me feel like giggling all day long. Whenever I asked her why she was crying, she would always say, "Oh, nothing. I'm okay. I'll be all right." Now I hoped her wishes would come true. She would at last be all right and happy. In September, I attended kindergarten at Macmillan Elementary School, just a few blocks from home. I thought the first day was the best day of my whole life. Kindergarten must be what heaven is like, I told Mom. I was so happy to be in Mrs. Holliday's class. I woke up every morning eager to go to school. I wasn't afraid of her, and I was sure she loved me. I loved my friend Mac. He was so much bigger than all the other kids, and he was also in my class. Mac held my hand, pushed me on the swings, and talked to me whenever he could. Every time the bell rang, he saved a place in the front of the line for me. If I charged up to the door and ended up behind anyone else, Mac would give me a piggyback ride to the front of the line where Mrs. Holliday would make him put me down. We smiled at each other throughout the day and talked about being best friends forever. Near the end of kindergarten year, while Tia and I were playing house, I asked how many moms she had. When she told me she only had one, I bragged I had 3. She was pretty excited for me. "Why do you get to have 3 moms and I don't?" "I don't know," I told her. The next day, Tia said her mom told her my dad was a pigamess and a very bad man because he don't follow God's rules, she added with a smirk. "And my mom told me I shouldn't play with you anymore because you're a pigamess too." "My dad is not a pigamess," I protested. "He does too keep God's rules. And my dad does too keep all of these things nice and neat. He's not ever messy." Kids. Sometimes my mom says my brother's rooms get messy like a pigsty, so maybe, I guess they are pigamesses, but my dad isn't a pigamess. The other kids looked at both of us in wonder. Then Tia said, "Well, your dad is a pigamess because my mom said he is. So maybe he should keep his room clean, then he won't be a pigamess anymore." As young as 5 and 6 years old, my public school peers chanted tauntingly, "Sophia is a pigamess. Sophia is a pigamess." I hid in the toy closet behind the shelves and cried until my teacher gently pulled me out by my hand. She held me in her arms and reminded the other children to be nice to everyone. They were nice to me after that, at least for a few more years. I'm glad that her teacher was there for her and her teacher was able to stop that. In the summer before I attended 1st grade, a big white station wagon pulled up at our house. The homely male driver leaned toward the passenger window and said to my mom, "Good afternoon, Sister Vera. We're going for an ice cream cone and want to know if Sophia can join us." Mom smiled and prodded my shoulder as she assumed I'd like to go with Gregory Maynard and my second cousin, his wife. "No," I blurted out. I didn't know why, but that man terrified me and made me feel sick inside. I didn't want to be in his car or near him ever. You know, kids have this way, and even adults sometimes, of knowing that something isn't right. And I wondered if she picked up on something on him. Mom, who always wanted to please others, seemed embarrassed by my behavior. But the more she tried to coax me into going along with Gregory and his wife, the more anxious I felt she'd make me go. I clung tightly to her legs and cried until she finally said, "I'm sorry, Brother Gregory. I don't understand why Sophia's behaving like this, but thank you for the offer anyway. Maybe another time." After they left, Mom, in her trusting naivety and her desire to be gracious and hospitable, scolded me for my behavior, telling me I'd been ungrateful and rude. Neither Mom nor I knew the reason for my intense feelings, and it would be many more years before we would. I was a pretty good student in the first grade. I didn't like my teacher as much as Mrs. Holliday, my kindergarten teacher, but I was happy Mac was in my class again. He sat right behind me so he could play with my wavy hair, which nearly reached my tailbone, because you all know one of the things they're not supposed to do is cut their hair. My flowing platinum blonde tresses were my pride and joy, but my tender head was my curse. On yet another day, Mom was in a hurry and in one of her terrible moods. While she tried to untangle my hair, she took it out of my head. For all I knew, she could have been angry or jealous about Dad, Aunt Eleanor, or Aunt Marianne, life, work, or school, or all of the above, or something else I had no clue about. While she yanked at my hair, I shrieked and begged her to stop, but the more I squirmed and cried, the more impatient she became. When I held on to the base of my hair with my fist so it wouldn't hurt so much, Mom smacked my hands with the back of the wooden brush and yelled, "Move your damn hands, Sophia, and stop screaming." Y'all, I have so many nightmare stories about my hair, especially that daggone hot comb. When my mother would put it on the stove and would burn me with that grease and the hot comb to straighten my hair. And do that same thing, smack you on the hand because you're trying to spare your scalp because it feels like your hair is being yanked out your head. Yeah, needless to say, I never did that with my son and his hair. I was not putting him through all that. By then, Mom was crying too. Her face was bright red and she'd gone totally berserk. "I've told you a million times, if you won't take care of your own hair, you don't deserve to have it." Mom screamed at me. Horrified, I watched her head toward our beautiful sideboard and get her scissors from the top drawer. See, y'all gonna tell me down below, because I'm feeling away. Tell me down below. Is this abuse? Yes or no? Because I've gotten into disagreements with people before on Instagram because I watched a barber shave off a young man's hair because he was disobedient to his mom. He got his hair cut off. And I feel like this is abusive. But you all tell me what you feel. I know me personally, there's other ways to discipline my son rather than cutting off his hair. And to know that she's sitting here about to cut this girl's hair, I'm triggered. Like the girl hasn't already been through enough. "Please, please don't cut my hair," I beg. "Please, Mom, I promise I'll take care of it. I won't cry anymore. I'll brush it. I promise. Please, please." But all I could do was watch piles of wavy locks fall down my back and chest and drift like feathers across the kitchen floor. In the mirror, I could barely see through my puffy white eyelids. My now uneven, shoulder-length hair and freakish, bulbous red face startled me. "I won't go to school ever again," I swore to myself. That's not right. She's taking out her frustration on her daughter, and I don't like stuff like this. I really don't like stuff like this. Maybe because I've had frustrations taken out on me as a child before, and this is a triggering thing for me, but I don't like this. I hid under my brother's bed until mom left for work. Somehow I managed to stay out of sight and skip school for the next couple of days. I guess that hair doesn't matter to them and she was able to do this. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong faith base, but to sit there and chop off the hair. Then Aunt Marianne discovered me asleep on a blanket in our storage room under the stairs. When I told her of my woes, she walked me over to Aunt Beth's house. Aunt Beth fixed my hair as best as she could until it was chopped above my shoulders. Then she held me while I cried some more. At school the next day, Mac was so upset and sad because my long blonde hair was gone. He told me he'd never speak to me again. What? But my mom cut it when she was really, really mad, I cried out. It's not my fault, it's all gone. Tears filled my eyes as he yelled back, I don't care, I loved your hair, now it's all gone. I closed my eyes so tightly, I got a headache, but I wouldn't let myself cry in front of the other kids. The second I was outside after school, I cried enough to fill a puddle. It wasn't me Mac loved, it was my hair. For the rest of his school years in Murray, he kept his word and never spoke to me again. Wow. He probably a little creep too, girl. You might have lucked out at him not speaking to you ever again. Because for him to be so attached to your hair, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody comes out and tells a story about him. Nearly every family home evening, Dad would drill his kids about the safety rules. Remember, he would say, I could go to prison and all of you could be stolen away from your mothers if you are not careful. You have got to practice and remember exactly what you should say. He darted out the questions as if he was the boogeyman, policeman, or the bad guy, and we would reply in unison. Who is the lady who lives with your mother? Dad would ask. She's my dad's sister, we'd say. What's her name? Aunt Marianne. Where's your dad, little kid? I don't know. We shrug our shoulders. Sure you do, kid. Where is he? Goodness gracious. I don't know, we'd say. Who are all those kids living with you? They're our cousins. Good, Dad would say. Why is that woman living with you? Dad helps take care of his sister and her kids. Our father smiled in approval. You Plig kids are getting good at this. My siblings would laugh, but my stomach hurt. Even though I knew the drill, I was only 7 and feared I'd mess up. When my dad would see my tears, I'd tell him I'd try hard to remember. This time, as usual, he put his arm around me and pulled me next to him. I'm sure you'll remember, my precious, he said. Don't worry, you'll do just fine. After we practiced every possible what-if scenario, as well as listening to Dad tell us all the things we shouldn't say, he leaned forward on the couch and said emphatically, one day you will be called at a moment's notice to run and get in the car. You must jump up immediately and do exactly as you are told. There will be no time for you to stop and ask why or to wait for anything or anyone. The last days are upon us. It won't be long before the earth will be destroyed with earthquakes and fires. The wrath of God will fall upon the wicked. Yet he will call his people out of darkness into the light. We are his chosen handful. If we continue to obey his commandments, we will be saved. This, my children, is why it is so important for you to always be exactly where you say you will be. This is why you must come immediately without question whenever you are called. You know, Dad went on, we will all be tested to see if we will hold fast to the iron rod, the teachings of God, and follow his direction in all things. God will test us to the degree we may feel we can no longer bear to hold on to our beliefs and our convictions. Like Job of the Bible, we may cry in agony. We will be horrified because of the carnage and the abominations of evil men and women. We will be devastated by the terrible destructions that will take place on this earth. Even still, my dear ones, if you will hold to the gospel of Jesus Christ and God's truth, you will be saved. I was so scared. I wanted to yell at my dad. Stop talking right now. Stop it, Daddy. And always remember, my loved ones, he continued, God's laws are much higher than the laws of the land. Therefore, there is nothing wrong with the little white lies you are required to tell to protect your family and others. Isn't that something? You all can't do all this stuff. You'll be damned. The wrath of God is going to come down on people and all this other stuff. But it's okay for you to tell little white lies as long as it protects our family. We are living God's higher laws and commandments, and there are evil people on the outside who would rather we weren't in the graces of God. They will do anything to thwart our righteous endeavors. They will stop at nothing to destroy us. By then I was sobbing, and Dad stopped his lecture to console me again. He pulled me onto his lap and asked, "What's wrong, my little darling? Are you still worried?" "Yes, Daddy," I said between sniffles. "You are scaring me." "I'm sorry, little Sophia. You will be okay, I promise you. We'll all be okay because we love God and Jesus Christ. And because God and Jesus loves us, they will protect us." "Okay, Daddy," I said in a strong, loud voice. "I will try to be a good girl and brave." And that is the end of chapter 4. Y'all, this was a hard one. I'm going to have to put a trigger thing in the little description box, because that one, I wasn't expecting to get that. I wonder what the HE double hockey stick her father was thinking, allowing her to go into a room alone with a doctor, let alone a male doctor, and she is a child. You should be in that room with her. My child is 17 years old, and I just started letting him go in the back by himself without me in the doctor's room maybe a year ago. And that's because we had all the different talks that we were supposed to have. And at this age, there's probably things that he may want to discuss with the doctor that he may not want to discuss with me. And I want to make sure that he has an environment that he could do that. But to sit there and to just throw my little 5 or 6-year-old in the back with a doctor and I'm not there with them? No, 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 no. And what happened to this doctor? Did she ever tell her parents? It just, I wasn't expecting it. I'll make sure that I put something in the comment section to let you all know that that's there. Whew. I wasn't expecting it. Kind of caught me off guard, honestly. I'm disturbed by that, and I have a feeling that we're going to hear more things like that. You all let me know what you think down below. Until next time.